A man stands facing the distant peaks and thinks about goddess Athena and the single lie she told, which the man believed. And then, a truck speeds toward a little girl who is waving at a cat on the road. A high school boy notices the danger and reacts without thinking. He rushes forward, shields the girl, and gets hit by the truck. He dies. He then finds himself in an unknown space. He remembers his death and reflects on why he acted that way. He believes he only wanted to do something heroic. Since childhood, he has admired protagonists. The heroes in stories give him courage and dreams, and over time he grows to want to become a cool protagonist like them. A goddess appears and sees his death as pitiful. She introduces herself as Goddess Athena, the one who guides the dead and grants new lives. She decides to reincarnate him into another world, which surprises him. She explains that she is moved by his act of protecting the child. Because of this, she chooses to reincarnate him as the protagonist in the world of a novel game called Round Table Chronicles. He feels amazed and begins to think his dream is coming true. He recalls hearing the title Round Table Chronicles before and believes a friend once recommended it, but he never played it. He does not know the story, the characters, or their personalities. Still, he accepts it, trusting that being the protagonist is enough and placing his hope in her. Goddess Athena explains that he will be reborn as a boy named Faye and will begin at the age of 13. He accepts this with excitement, and she sends him away while wishing him a safe journey. It soon becomes clear that the promise of becoming the protagonist is a lie. Faye is actually just a minor and unimportant character in Round Table Chronicles. Goddess Athena chooses this on purpose because she finds typical reincarnation stories boring after seeing too many of them. As she looks at his image on a screen, she decides to watch what he will do in this role. In a house deep in the forest, a young boy lies on a bed with a wet cloth on his forehead. Someone calls out his name, Faye. Faye wakes up, and a nun nearby feels relieved because his fever has finally gone down. He looks around and tries to confirm that he has truly been reincarnated. His head hurts, and when he tries to speak, he notices that his way of speaking sounds different from before. The nun says he must be hungry and goes to get food for him. As he responds, he realizes again that his speech feels strange. He begins to think that this may be the natural way the character speaks. He looks at his reflection in a bowl of water and feels surprised. His face appears somewhat villainous for a protagonist, and his eyes look sharp. He convinces himself that he must be the cool and distant type of protagonist. A few days later, Faye sits outside on a bench while other children play nearby. He reflects on the fact that nothing special has happened since his reincarnation. He organizes his thoughts and confirms that he is Faye, a young orphan. He notices that his tone sounds condescending, but he believes this fits his role as a cool protagonist. He also assumes that standing apart from others is part of that image, not because he is disliked. The nun, Maria, is seen hanging clothes outside and asks about his condition. Faye responds calmly. He observes that Maria is kind and cares about him, and he notes that she is 25 years old. He begins to wonder if she could be a heroine in the story. Faye later goes to the study room and reads books to learn more about Round Table Chronicles, since he does not know the story. He learns that the world is a medieval fantasy setting with swords and magic. In this world, holy knights protect the land of Britannia from dangerous creatures called demon beasts. With this knowledge, Faye decides on his goal. At the age of 15, he plans to take the knight entrance exam, become a holy knight, and perform heroic acts. He imagines being admired by others, surrounded by beautiful heroines, and living an exciting life. He concludes that he needs to train with a sword over the next 2 years. A few months later, Faye practices swinging a sword and wonders if he has become stronger. Another boy named Toru approaches him and questions what he is doing. Faye feels annoyed and wonders why Toru keeps bothering him. He suspects that Toru might also be just a minor character. Faye insists that he is training seriously, but Toru does not believe him and reminds him of his past behavior. Faye realizes that he knows nothing about what this body did before his reincarnation. Toru challenges Faye to a match and sets a condition that if he wins, Faye must explain everything. Faye agrees with confidence and claims he will show how capable he is. The other children gather and watch the fight. Faye raises his sword and rushes forward, but Toru strikes him in the chest first and sends him flying. Faye feels shocked because he believes he is the protagonist. He charges again with repeated attacks, but Toru easily dodges every move. Faye soon collapses from exhaustion and realizes that Toru is far faster than him, making victory impossible at this rate. Even so, Faye begins to see this as a turning point. He believes this must be a special moment where a protagonist awakens hidden power when pushed to the limit. He convinces himself that he only needs to endure until that awakening happens and that this trial will teach him never to give up. Struggling to stand, Faye feels excited, thinking this is the kind of moment he has always dreamed of. He gathers his strength and attacks again, but a few minutes later, he is completely beaten down. He still waits for his awakening and wonders if he needs to be pushed even further. Barely able to stand, he insists that the fight is not over. Toru notices Faye's persistence and strikes him again, yet Faye refuses to fall. Instead, he shows a strange smile and continues to endure, as if he wants more pain. Toru feels uneasy as he looks into Faye's eyes and senses something deep and unsettling, like a dark obsession that has built up over a long time. The pressure from Faye's presence begins to feel intense. Toru prepares to launch a serious attack, but Maria suddenly steps in and stops him. Toru quickly apologizes. Maria then turns to Faye and checks on him, only to realize that he is already unconscious, still standing on his feet. Faye remains nothing more than a minor character in Round Table Chronicles, while Toru is actually one of the true protagonists, a fact that Faye does not know. At the orphanage, Faye wakes up slowly and looks around, still thinking about the fight. He wonders why his awakening has not happened yet. Nearby, Maria sits beside him, dozing off from exhaustion after taking care of him. Faye begins to worry that something is wrong. He wonders if he has been reincarnated into the wrong person since nothing special has appeared. Still, he quickly rejects that thought and convinces himself that a goddess would not make such a mistake. Instead, he believes that his defeat must have meaning. In his mind, this is the kind of early event where a protagonist faces an enemy he cannot defeat, realizes his weakness, and later grows stronger because of it. Maria soon wakes up and notices that Faye is already conscious. She checks on him with concern. Faye says he is fine, but as he moves, a sharp pain runs through his shoulders. Maria explains that his injuries are serious and mentions that she plans to scold Toru for going too far. Faye stops her, believing the fight is something he needed. He sees it as an important step that will shape his future. Maria then asks why he suddenly started training with a sword. Faye cannot explain his real reason, so he recalls the existence of the dangerous creatures known as Umaseda. He claims that he wants to grow stronger and reach greater heights. He declares that he will become a holy knight and destroy those creatures. In his mind, this sounds perfect, since a protagonist needs a grand and meaningful goal. However, Maria does not react the way he expects. Instead of admiration, she looks worried. She reminds him that his parents were killed by the Umaseda and that they would not want him to live such a dangerous life. Faye realizes that the original Faye's parents died this way, and he quickly adds revenge to his goal. He convinces himself that this fits his role even better, deciding that he will fight for both his parents and the world. Maria apologizes softly, feeling that she has failed him. She explains that she wanted to act as a parent to him and make sure he never felt alone. She believes that he has been lonely since losing his parents and that this loneliness is what drives his desire for revenge. Faye, who has no memory of the past, tells her not to worry, but he can clearly see how concerned she is. This makes him feel uneasy, as he knows he is not truly the Faye she has been caring for. Without warning, Maria gently hugs him. Faye is caught off guard by the sudden closeness. He feels unsure how to respond and chooses not to hug her back, believing that a cool and distant character would not act so openly. Maria reassures him that she will always stay by his side and expresses her deep care for him. After this moment, Faye becomes even more convinced that Maria might be one of the heroines in the story. Later, Maria is seen bathing as she reflects on her past. She was once a holy knight who fought against the Umaseda until a few years ago. After leaving that life behind, she began running the orphanage and caring for children. In the visual novel Legends of the Round Table, she serves as the foster parent of Toru and can become a heroine depending on the path taken. Maria admits to herself that she has not been very close to Faye. She remembers him as a boy who was arrogant and distant, someone who kept himself away from others, including her. Over time, she also began to keep her distance without realizing it. However, everything changed after he fell seriously ill with a high fever. Since then, Faye has become different. He now trains seriously with a sword, studies quietly, and no longer causes trouble for the other children. Even so, his recent declaration about destroying the Umaseda troubles her. She begins to think that perhaps he made a strong decision during his illness, much like she once did. She remembers how she chose the path of revenge after losing her own parents and became a holy knight to fight the Umaseda. She faced death many times in battle, and no matter how many enemies she defeated, her anger never disappeared. What finally calmed her heart was not victory, but the smiles of the children she later protected. Those children healed her, and she promised herself that she would protect them in return. As she reflects on this, she realizes that she may have failed to see the loneliness hidden behind Faye's awkward and distant behavior. She regrets not facing him properly and not giving him the love and attention he needed. Maria thinks that if she had truly been there for him earlier, he might not have started thinking about revenge at all. She convinces herself that she still has time to guide him properly. In her heart, she decides that she will not allow him to walk such a dangerous path. She resolves to stop him if he ever fully chooses revenge, and she holds on to a quiet hope that one day he will open up to her and return her embrace. While Maria continues to overthink the situation and misunderstand Faye's true intentions, time passes. 2 years go by, and Faye is now 15 years old. With determination in his heart and his goal unchanged, he sets out on his journey to take the entrance exam and become a holy knight. A female aspirant walks around, trying to find the hall for the exam. She looks unsure and avoids asking others for help because she is not good at interacting with people. While searching, she notices Faye standing alone under a large tree. His calm and distant presence catches her attention. He appears mysterious, and something about him feels unusual. She senses a strange similarity between them, and this makes her curious about him. At the royal capital of Britannia, inside the headquarters of the Knight Order, also known as the Castle of the Round Table, Faye finally arrives. He looks ahead at the large crowd gathered in front of the gate and feels that the moment he has been waiting for has come. He reflects on the past 2 years since his reincarnation and believes that everything has led to this point. As he observes the other aspirants talking among themselves, he views them as part of his supporting cast, each playing their role. Among them, he notices Toru. The memory of their previous fight comes back to him, reminding him of how badly he was defeated. Faye feels surprised that Toru is also taking the exam. Faye quietly hides behind a wall and peeks at Toru, thinking of him as just another background character who happens to aim for knighthood. At the same time, Toru notices Faye and recalls the unsettling experience from their past encounter. Remembering Faye's intense and obsessive behavior, Toru decides it is best to keep his distance. Faye later stands alone again under the large tree, leaning against it with his arms crossed. He believes this pose makes him look calm and impressive. While standing there, he notices the same female aspirant walking toward him and begins to wonder about her intentions. He briefly considers the possibility that she might be a heroine, but then reminds himself that Maria already fills that role. At that moment, a 5th-rank holy knight named Maramaru appears and greets the group. Faye recalls that the ranking system of the holy knights in Britannia goes from 12th rank to 1st rank, with lower numbers representing higher status. He also remembers that the rank can be identified by the design on the emblem worn on their chest. Maramaru explains that the order is always in need of new knights, so the recruitment exam is held regularly. He even suggests that the aspirants gathered already show enough ability to pass. One of the participants reacts with confidence, believing the test will be easy. Faye, however, feels uncertain about such a casual attitude from an examiner. Maramaru then announces that the Aptitude test will begin with a mock battle, instructing everyone to quickly form pairs. The aspirants immediately start grouping together. Faye watches them and feels dissatisfied, thinking they lack seriousness. Believing himself to be the protagonist, he rejects the idea of taking shortcuts and decides to give his full effort. With confidence, Faye loudly asks who wants to pair up with him. However, he is completely ignored, and all the pairs are quickly formed without him. He feels shocked and left out as he realizes no one has chosen him. At that moment, the female aspirant from earlier calls out to him. Faye notices that her way of speaking feels somewhat sharp, yet he is struck by how beautiful she is. He cannot help but feel that her personality does not match her appearance. The girl looks at Faye closely and suddenly comments on his expression. Faye feels confused by her remark and begins to wonder if she is criticizing his face. For a brief moment, he even considers the possibility that she finds him unattractive. Seeing his reaction, the girl realizes that her words may have come across the wrong way, so she decides to explain herself more clearly. She points out that while the other aspirants are acting relaxed and careless after hearing they have already passed, Faye is the only one who remains serious and focused. She questions why he is different from the rest. Faye reflects on her words and, in his mind, believes that anyone who becomes complacent just because they hear they have passed has already failed as a main character. However, instead of saying that directly, he gives a composed response. He explains that no matter the situation, a person must always maintain control over themselves and push beyond their limits, because without doing so, they can never truly grow. As he speaks, he notices her reaction and assumes that she is impressed by his words. This makes him feel confident, thinking that his calm and thoughtful answer has made an impact. However, her next response catches him off guard. She explains that the examiner never said there would be no ranking among those who passed. Since becoming a holy knight means risking one's life, it would be unreasonable for there to be no further evaluation. She goes on to interpret the situation as a hidden test, one that measures how disciplined a person can remain even in an environment that encourages complacency. She believes that Faye must have realized this from the beginning and acted accordingly. Although Faye actually has no idea about this reasoning, he maintains his composure and silently goes along with her assumption. The girl becomes even more impressed, seeing him as someone with strong willpower and sharp insight, qualities she feels she lacks. Her curiosity about him grows, and she decides that she wants to learn more. Because of this, she asks him to team up with her for the mock battle. Faye agrees without hesitation. She then asks for his name, and after he introduces himself, she reveals her own name as Arthur. Hearing this, Faye feels that her name sounds like that of a protagonist. For a moment, he considers the possibility, but he quickly dismisses it, believing that Arthur, along with Toru, must be key figures who support the true main character. In the original story of Round Table Chronicles, Arthur and Toru are central figures, with the story unfolding through their perspectives, alongside several other supporting protagonists. Faye, on the other hand, is nothing more than a minor character who was never meant to stand out. However, his presence begins to disrupt the natural flow of the story, turning it into something completely unpredictable, beyond even what the gods could foresee. Soon, the two stand facing each other, holding their swords as the mock battle begins. Faye moves first and charges forward with a decisive slash, believing he can take the initiative. However, Arthur reacts instantly. She avoids his attack with ease and shifts her position in a swift motion, appearing from another direction almost immediately. Faye is left stunned by her speed and skill, realizing that she is far more capable than he expected. As he watches her movements, a new question forms in his mind as he begins to wonder who she truly is. Faye steps forward and begins launching repeated attacks at Arthur, but she calmly blocks each strike with ease. With a single counterattack, she knocks his sword away effortlessly. In that moment, Arthur realizes that Faye is not strong at all. Even so, Faye does not stop. He rushes at her again with determination. Arthur watches him closely and reflects on her earlier impression. Since Faye shows such strong willpower and composure, she expected his swordsmanship to match that level. However, what she sees is disappointing. His movements are unrefined, and his style feels strange. As she continues to dodge his attacks without difficulty, she begins to suspect that his technique may be self-taught. Faye, on the other hand, notices something else entirely. He realizes that Arthur is both beautiful and incredibly skilled, yet she has not once tried to seriously strike him. This realization frustrates him. He becomes convinced that she is holding back on purpose, and that thought irritates him deeply. Once again, his sword is knocked out of his hands. As he moves to pick it up, Arthur questions what is strange about him. Faye immediately assumes she is referring to his face and grows even more irritated, thinking she dislikes his appearance. However, it becomes clear that she is actually referring to his unusual swordsmanship. For a brief moment, Faye considers the idea that she might be a heroine, but after observing her blunt and critical nature, he quickly reclassifies her in his mind as one of those rival characters with a harsh personality. This only strengthens his resolve, as he convinces himself that he will defeat her this time. However, the gap between them is obvious. Arthur continues to overwhelm him with ease, and the other aspirants begin to notice. Some of them start whispering, questioning why Faye cannot even use basic abilities. In this world, there exists a power known as arts, a phenomenon similar to magic that resides within everyone. Yet Faye has no idea how to use it. Arthur observes him carefully. She knows that Faye should already understand that he cannot defeat her, yet he refuses to give up. Instead, each time he stands back up, his determination only grows stronger. It almost feels as if he becomes more driven the more he is pushed into a corner. To her, he begins to resemble a hero who grows through hardship. For a moment, she considers that Faye might one day become a true hero. However, she quickly suppresses that thought. In this world, power is everything. Without strength, ideals mean nothing. It is a harsh world where danger lurks everywhere, where the weak are treated as prey, and where even cruel experiments are allowed to exist. As these thoughts surface, Arthur recalls painful memories from her past. She comes to the conclusion that determination alone cannot change reality, and that effort does not always lead to success. With that belief, she attacks again, convinced that someone who cannot even control arts has no chance of defeating her. Faye is struck and falls to the ground, his sword hitting his forehead as he collapses. Around them, some of the other aspirants begin to laugh. They mock Faye, saying that he tries to act impressive but is actually weak and pathetic. They claim that no matter how hard he tries, it is pointless, and that he should simply give up. Arthur hears their laughter and feels uncomfortable. She cannot stand watching them ridicule him any longer. Deciding to end the fight quickly, she activates a special ability through her eyes. Her magical eye takes effect, and Faye suddenly drops to one knee, as if his body is losing control. Arthur turns away, believing the match is already decided. Then, unexpectedly, she hears Faye's voice insisting that the fight is not over. She turns back in surprise, only to find him already moving. In the next instant, he closes the distance between them and delivers a powerful strike. Her sword shatters into pieces upon impact. At the same time, she realizes that her ability had no effect on him. The power she used is known as a magical eye, a rare ability that manifests in the eyes of certain individuals. It can only be awakened through natural talent. Arthur possesses the magical eye of domination, a form of suggestion that allows her to control those she makes eye contact with by consuming arts. It is an overwhelming ability that can decide a battle instantly once activated. However, despite its strength, it is not without flaws. Like any power, it has weaknesses and conditions, and under certain circumstances, it can be resisted or completely negated. There are several known ways to counter a magical eye. The first is through another magical eye user. Depending on the nature of the abilities, one can resist or interfere with the other. The second is through natural resistance, either by being born with a special immunity or by possessing an item that weakens or nullifies such powers. The third method is simple but effective, avoiding eye contact altogether, since the ability cannot activate if their eyes never meet. The fourth method is far more unusual, when the target is already under a stronger form of suggestion that overrides the effect of the magical eye. Faye falls into this final category. For the past 2 years since his reincarnation, he has repeated the same belief to himself every single day. He constantly affirms that he is the protagonist. Over time, this thought grows beyond a simple idea and turns into an unshakable conviction. It becomes a powerful form of self-suggestion, so strong that it overrides even Arthur's high-level magical eye. With unwavering resolve, Faye holds onto his belief that a protagonist never gives up, no matter how difficult the situation becomes, and always emerges victorious in the end. This intense determination allows him to resist her ability and continue fighting. Arthur watches him closely and feels genuinely impressed by his willpower. However, before the fight can continue any further, Maramaru suddenly announces that the exam has come to an end. Faye, still filled with determination, declares that he will defeat Arthur the next time they meet. As the moment settles, Arthur looks down at her shattered sword and realizes that Faye has pushed her to take the fight seriously, something that rarely happens. For Arthur, this moment feels significant. She has always carried a quiet hope of meeting someone who could pull her out of the darkness she has lived with for so long. As she reflects on what just happened, she begins to wonder if Faye might be that person, someone capable of breaking through the harsh and unforgiving reality of their world. With that thought in mind, she quietly hopes that if they ever meet again, it will not be as opponents, but as friends. At the Knights Order headquarters, in a quiet office filled with stacks of papers, Maramaru, a 5th-rank holy knight responsible for overseeing the recruitment exam, studies the files carefully. He considers which aspirants are worthy of joining the special unit. The Holy Knights Order constantly struggles with a shortage of capable members, so they accept temporary trainees and provide them with rigorous training to prepare them for the dangers they might face. Those who demonstrate exceptional potential are given even more intense preparation, specifically designed to turn them into members of the elite special unit. On the surface, the current mock battle is just a standard exam. However, hidden within it is a subtle evaluation. Marumaru wants to see whether the aspirants can maintain discipline and self-control even when the circumstances appear relaxed. While most aspirants remain oblivious to this hidden item, Marumaru soon notices Faye among the few who stay vigilant, alert to everything happening around them. He observes Faye's calm expression, which reveals nothing despite listening carefully to all the conversations, and he recalls that Faye is a child from Maria's orphanage. Marumaru feels a sudden wave of nostalgia as he remembers his own days in training. He and Maria joined the order at the same time, fighting against each other during their recruitment exam. Back then, Maria's eyes had a terrifying, abyss-like focus that clung to every detail relentlessly, a concentration so intense it left a lasting impression. Seeing Faye now, with his similarly honed focus and unshakable concentration, Marumaru is struck by the resemblance. Faye's aura of determination reminds him strongly of Maria, known among the knights as the Revenger. As he studies Faye's file, Marumaru notes something unusual. Faye possesses incredible mental strength and focus, yet lacks the practical skills to fully utilize it. It becomes clear to him that Maria deliberately withheld training in certain sword techniques and magical arts. She must have done so to protect him from walking the same dangerous path she had endured. Marumaru remembers that in the special unit, graduates are frequently thrust into high-risk missions, and without proper guidance, someone like Faye could easily be endangered. Meanwhile, aspirants like Arthur and Toru display exceptional skill and talent, representing the ideal type of orthodox knight, and there is no doubt they will succeed if admitted. Faye, however, presents a very different situation. His abilities are unbalanced, his fighting style reckless, and his refusal to know when to retreat could put both himself and his comrades at serious risk. Yet, despite these dangers, Marumaru cannot ignore the brilliance of Faye's soul. There is a unique quality in him, an edge of madness mixed with potential, that Marumaru senses is deeper than anything he observes in the other aspirants. While convention dictates that someone like Faye should be kept out of the special unit, Marumaru reasons that if the order continues strictly along orthodox lines, they will never change the world. Faye represents a wild card, a chance to see what might happen if a unique spirit is unleashed in the hands of a holy knight. With careful consideration, Marumaru stamps Faye's file with approval. He hopes to witness what kind of knight Faye will become, whether he follows the strict path of orthodoxy or embraces a form of controlled madness that could reshape the world. In that moment, Marumaru, much like Maria before him, finds himself overanalyzing Faye's actions. Meanwhile, back at the orphanage, Faye sits in the training room, focused on his awakening exercises. He concentrates with all his might, but nothing seems to happen. Frustration and determination mingle on his face as he pushes himself, yet the energy he seeks refuses to manifest. A younger boy calls out to him, announcing that dinner is ready. Faye looks up and sees the boy, Lele, standing nearby with a bright, curious expression, and Maria, who watches over them both with a gentle, caring smile. Lele teases Faye, asking what is taking so long and why nothing seems to be happening. Just as Faye opens his mouth to respond, an owl swoops in, dropping a letter onto the table in front of him. Faye takes it carefully and reads the contents. His eyes widen slightly as he realizes it is an acceptance letter. He has been appointed as a probationary Holy Knight of the Round Table. Lele is immediately impressed, his eyes sparkling with excitement, while Maria offers him warm congratulations, pride evident in her expression. Faye maintains a cool, composed exterior, giving off the image of calm confidence, yet inside he is thrilled and barely able to contain his excitement. Lele, inspired by Faye's achievement, wonders aloud whether he could ever become a knight himself. Faye replies simply, stating that it depends entirely on Lele's own resolve and determination to seize the opportunity. Encouraged by Faye's words, Lele nods with renewed determination, promising that he will do his best. Faye feels a surge of motivation from Lele's response. He resolves that he will train even harder than before, pushing himself to his absolute limits. Someday, he will awaken fully, and when that moment comes, it will be spectacular. At the orphanage, Maria serves the children their meal, moving gracefully from table to table. Faye, however, drifts in his imagination. In his mind, two of the girls rush toward him, each insisting they will feed him and take care of him. He pictures himself flustered and unsure, caught between them, not knowing which to choose. He smiles inwardly at the thought, thinking this is exactly how a protagonist like himself should be treated. But reality is different. The two girls pass him entirely and run to meet Toru instead. Faye's chest tightens, jealousy bubbling within. How can Toru, someone he considers a minor character, enjoy the privileges Faye believes belong to him as the protagonist? He clenches his fists, silently telling himself that one day he will experience these moments too, the admiration, the attention, the small joys that come with being the hero. The next day, as Faye prepares to leave the orphanage, the little boy Maria cares for waves at him enthusiastically, cheering him on and telling him to do his very best. Faye nods, accepting the encouragement. Today marks the beginning of his training as a probationary trainee of the Knights of the Round Table. His heart races with excitement. The moment he has been waiting for, the start of his legend as a protagonist, is finally here. Arriving at the training venue, Faye notices he is the only one there. Perhaps he has arrived too early, he thinks, standing beneath the large trees of the courtyard. Just then, a girl named Arthur approaches and calls out his name. Faye looks up, meeting her gaze with a stern, unreadable expression. Arthur hopes today will be the day she can finally become friends with him, and she feels a little excited at the possibility. Faye's moment of quiet is interrupted by footsteps behind them. They turn to see Buran arriving. Arthur frowns slightly, disappointed that their private moment is broken. Soon after, Toru arrives, panting heavily and flushed from running. Everyone looks at him curiously, silently wondering what left him so out of breath. Then a young girl comes running toward them, slightly out of breath. She apologizes for arriving late and asks if she is too late. Arthur reassures her that it is fine because the instructor has not arrived yet. The girl smiles awkwardly, then surprises them by revealing she is the instructor. Arthur responds teasingly, telling her she should not give up and can still grow taller. The girl, calm but curious, asks if Arthur's words are meant to comfort her. Facing everyone, the girl introduces herself properly as Ururu Gales Tia. She explains that during the probationary period, she will act as a 12th rank Holy Knight instructor, overseeing swordsmanship training, classroom duties, and general guidance. She says she looks forward to working with them. As she speaks, Ururu notices Faye's intense, strict expression, his sharp gaze fixed on her. She wonders why he looks at her this way. In truth, Faye is irritated not by her, but by the length of her name, which he finds far too cumbersome. He already decides on a simpler version for himself. The girl, Ururu, decides not to divert her attention too much, so she asks all of them to introduce themselves briefly. One by one they speak. Arthur says she is 17 years old, making her the oldest among them, as the rest are all 15. Ururu then turns to Faye and comments that he looks older than his age, a remark that immediately draws Arthur into the conversation. She teasingly interrupts, pointing out that even though she is 17, she often acts much younger. Faye feels a spark of irritation at that, a sudden heat rising in his chest. Even Arthur notices the subtle shift in his expression, puzzled because she had meant nothing more than a simple comment, not a slight or a judgment. Faye inwardly scolds himself for reacting so strongly, though he cannot help the feeling of frustration bubbling within. Ururu then moves the session forward, announcing that she wants to begin the training immediately. Before starting, she explains that she will use the crystal measure she holds to gauge their magical aptitude for art. She turns to Faye first and asks him to place the crystal in his palm and channel his art into it. Immediately, Faye senses that this is magic, the very phenomenon he has read about in books. Magic, he recalls, is a supernatural manifestation powered by art, an energy that resides in every human heart. Attributes like fire, water, wind, and earth exist in magic, and a person cannot wield a type unless their art corresponds with that element. Faye, however, cannot yet sense anything within himself, nor does he understand how it works. Still, he reasons that, as a protagonist, he must possess a rare and extraordinary talent waiting to awaken. Faye hesitates, so Ururu asks who would like to go first. Faye confidently volunteers to go last, reasoning that if he produces an outrageous result, it might overshadow the others and make them feel bad. Buran, however, steps forward, eager to display her ability despite everyone already knowing her attributes. She collects the crystal and channels her art into it. The energy manifests as a force wielder, and Ururu's eyes widen in shock at the sheer precision and power displayed. Buran, unfazed by the reaction, simply hands the crystal back to Yururu, knowing that she is a genius and that this is expected of her. Next, Toru steps forward. He takes the crystal and channels his art, revealing a level of mastery so complete that Yururu is taken aback even further. She had anticipated talent among the aspirants, but the sheer finesse and control in his art impressed her more than she expected. Arthur steps up next, taking the crystal with calm confidence. The moment she channels her art into it, the crystal glows with a radiant light that fills the room, revealing her origin art. Yururu watches in awe, realizing that Arthur's ability is far beyond ordinary. At this moment, she begins to understand the caliber of the children she will be training. Faye observes the others and admits to himself that they are skilled, while he still struggles due to his limited knowledge of magic. In their world, everyone has a fundamental power called the Void Attribute. Those who combine it with one of the 4 basic attributes are dual attribute holders. Rarely, someone can have 2 or 3 attributes. Those who can produce all 4 basic attributes are called Force, like Buran, while those who master every basic attribute are called All-Master, like Toru. There is also a rare anomaly called a Unique Attribute Origin. Very few people possess it, as it carries many unknown qualities. When it becomes Faye's turn, he feels the moment to reveal his hidden power has arrived. He connects his art to the crystal but discovers he only has the Void Attribute. Faye feels frustrated. Buran laughs at him, having expected something more impressive, and Yururu even has to caution her. Faye steps aside to be alone, silently questioning why this happens to him despite being told he is the protagonist. He eventually convinces himself that his journey will require effort, and he knows he is the hardworking type. Yururu approaches him and checks on his well-being. She encourages him not to take Buran's actions to heart, revealing that she shares the same Void Attribute. She offers to teach him about its potential. Faye is surprised to learn that their teacher faces the same situation as him. Yururu urges him to do his best alongside her. Faye decides to confide in her, accepting her as his mentor and promising to learn from her. He makes it clear that he is counting on her guidance. The training begins, and Faye throws himself into it, determined to give his best. They start with running, and Faye pushes himself harder than anyone else. By the time they finish, he is completely exhausted, far more worn out than the others. When the next exercise begins, he can't step forward immediately. Instead, he watches Toru swinging the sword with practiced ease. Despite his fatigue, Faye understands the importance of stamina and knows that enduring this phase is crucial for growth. Even after the running and observation, Yururu reminds them that the training is far from over. She announces they will move on to sparring and sets 3 rounds for the first session. She stresses that everyone must participate at least once, warning that the person with the most losses will have to run 10 laps around the capital on their hands when training ends. She also forbids the use of art during the matches. Faye observes Yururu and can't help but think she seems harsh, training them so relentlessly. At the same time, he notes her cute face and wonders if her sternness might hide a softer side. He reasons that, since everyone is already tired, their movements will be sluggish, which could give him a chance to win. But things do not go as he expects. Faye loses his match and is forced to perform the punishment of handstanding around the capital. Onlookers make fun of him, laughing at his struggles. Unknown to him, Yururu quietly watches. She is impressed by how well Faye maintains his balance, knowing that many students falter at this stage. His performance reminds her of her own past when she used to do handstands and face similar teasing. Despite the memories, she silently encourages Faye, holding faith in his perseverance and determination. When the punishment ends, Yururu praises him, her voice carrying both admiration and relief. Faye is startled to realize she has been watching him the entire time, but she explains that her attention was born from concern, not judgment. Feeling inspired, Faye asks Yururu for some time to focus on sword training. They sit down together, and Faye requests her guidance. Yururu looks momentarily taken aback and almost hesitant. Faye notices her reaction and wonders if she is too exhausted herself. Yururu explains that she is pushing her limits already, but she also admits that it would be pointless to hold back, and surpassing her limits is the only way for him to truly grow. Faye admits to Yururu that he is still the weakest among them, which makes him more determined than anyone to grow stronger. His plan is to appear composed in front of his colleagues while secretly putting in extra effort behind the scenes. When Yururu tries to offer an excuse, Faye takes her hands and earnestly asks for her help, insisting that she is the only one who can guide him. Seeing his resolve, Yururu agrees to assist him, though only a little at first. The training begins with Yururu pointing out the flaws in Faye's swordsmanship. She notices that he has a strange habit and tends to be too tense. To address this, she asks him to defend against her strike while exaggerating his tension. When the spar starts, Yururu disarms him in a single swift slash. Faye is stunned, struggling to understand how it was possible even though he had exerted all his strength, and he begins to wonder if she possesses superhuman power. Yururu helps him pick up the sword and instructs him to try again. This time, she tells him to hold his stance without exerting strength until the precise moment before her strike, when he should apply full power to defend. Faye follows her guidance, and for the first time, he successfully blocks her strike without losing his sword. Yururu explains that swordsmanship is not about maintaining constant strength, but applying it precisely at the right moments to generate greater force. Faye is amazed at how clear and simple her teaching is, and it finally starts to make sense to him. She warns him that his habits are deeply ingrained and it will take time to correct them. When Faye asks how long it will take, Yururu admits she cannot give an exact answer. Faye wonders if his technique is really that flawed, but he remains determined. He then asks if she will be available in the morning, which surprises Yururu. She worries he might overexert himself, but Faye assures her that is exactly what he hopes for. As they sit together, Yururu finds herself observing Faye, thinking he has a face that reminds her of an older brother, though she quickly realizes it is different. Faye notices her gaze and asks if something is wrong. She brushes it off and tells him she will now be strict with him, a statement he readily accepts, to which they part ways. It has been a full month since Faye joined the special unit, and in that time, his days have been packed with relentless study and training. He attends classroom lessons, participates in magic classes, and endures harsh physical exercises designed to push him to his limits. On top of that, he practices swordsmanship diligently every morning and evening under Yururu's watchful eye, steadily improving his technique. Even after all of this, he continues to fulfill his daily punishment of 10 laps around the capital on his hands, a grueling routine that would wear down most people. While he endures this punishment, a little girl has already taken notice of him, affectionately calling him her handstand big brother. She shows concern for him, often asking if he would like to eat, though Faye always reassures her that he is fine, even as exhaustion weighs heavily on him. He just wants to complete his laps and finish for the day, but the girl's attention provides a quiet source of encouragement. Others in the capital have also noticed his determination. Many admire his consistency, recognizing that few could maintain such discipline for more than a day. One passerby even considers giving him something as a token of respect the next time they see him, appreciating the effort he puts into every repetition, every step, and every swing of his sword. After completing his punishment, Faye returns to training with Yururu. His skills continue to improve, and Yururu begins to acknowledge his progress more openly, encouraging him to keep pushing. She notes that he possesses a natural talent for swordsmanship, though Faye hides his excitement, responding only that she should save her praise for when he can finally defeat her. Inside, however, he feels a quiet thrill at hearing her acknowledgement, a confirmation that his effort is bearing fruit. Yururu observes that what truly makes Faye remarkable is not just his skill, but his heart. He does not fear change. He refuses to cling stubbornly to one style or method, tearing down the structures he builds and reshaping them anew to improve. Though he lacks aptitude for magic, Yururu recognizes that his swordsmanship talent, if fully developed, could allow him to triumph over almost anyone. During a quiet moment, Faye calls Yururu's attention and asks if her swordsmanship belongs to a particular school. Yururu confirms that it does, surprising Faye, who had not realized that formal schools of swordsmanship existed. This sparks his curiosity, and he presses her about a special technique, though their conversation has yet to reach that point. When he asks which school she follows, Yururu asks if he has heard the name Gales Tia. Faye replies that he only knows it as Yururu's family name, which she confirms is correct. She explains further that the Gales Tia family was once a noble house that fell into ruin some time ago. The family's legacy includes a swordsmanship style passed down through generations called the Namikaze style, which forms the foundation of Yururu's training. She notes, however, that the school is not highly regarded, which is why she has been selective about teaching it to others. At this point, Faye realizes that he might have pushed Yururu too hard by asking about her family swordsmanship, but he quickly convinces himself that learning it would be incredible. When Yururu asks if he is still interested in mastering the Namikaze style, Faye doesn't hesitate for a moment before saying yes. Even so, Yururu still hesitates, and Faye can see that she is cautious about teaching someone her skill. This makes him wonder if the style is cursed or perhaps one of the forbidden sword techniques. Yururu explains that, due to certain circumstances, she is not well liked among the holy knights. If they discovered that he learned the Namikaze Seishin style from her, it could cause him serious trouble. She asks if he is willing to take that risk. Fei does not hesitate. He insists that he doesn't care and asks her to begin teaching him immediately. With that, Yururu begins the training, repeating the name of the style for him once more. Even the name itself strikes Fei as powerful and impressive, and he secretly decides that it is already his favorite swordsmanship style. Yururu starts the lesson by asking Fei to swing his sword straight down at her. He does so, and in an instant, Yururu intercepts his blade and positions her sword at his neck. She explains that this is the essence of the Namikaze Seishin style: deflect the opponent's strike and immediately follow up with a counterattack. Fei is surprised by the straightforwardness of the technique. It is simpler and more elegant than he had imagined. Yururu asks if he understands the concept. Fei replies that her teaching is clear and effective, and that the rest is up to him. He resolves to push himself to the limit, confident that he can master it with enough effort. Yururu is impressed by his determination and curiosity and asks how far he plans to go in pursuit of strength. After a pause, Fei admits that he wants to become as strong as possible. Yururu, recognizing in him a reflection of her older brother, someone who constantly seeks strength but risks becoming demanding and single-minded, offers gentle advice. She warns him not to let the pursuit of power become his sole purpose, reminding him to keep sight of what is truly important. Fei listens carefully and promises to keep her words in mind. With that understanding, Yururu tells him to try the skill one more time. She is determined to guide him properly as his teacher, ensuring that he does not lose his way. Her goal is clear: she will not allow him to follow the same path as her brother, whose obsession with power has already caused problems, and she is determined to prevent Fei from falling into the same trap.